Hello and welcome. It's Nicole with another new sketch for you and 2 takes to get you started. It's Sketch Starters with Nicole. My newest sketch has these 4 vertical little strips that kind of overlap each other, so they can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. For my 2 starters, I'm going to do an old technique that I'm going to modernize a little bit. And then for my second project, I'm going to jump into my scrap bin to create a beautiful multi-geometric project. To get started with my first project, I'm going to be using the Cartoon Rose stamp set and my Enchanted Gold pigment ink, along with the Cherry Blossom gradient cardstock. So I'm moving the cardstock a little bit off of the right edge, so that way I can add in these pieces from Cartoon Rose and make sure that they're falling off the edges. I'm basically creating my own kind of patterned paper using this stamp set and the Enchanted Gold ink. So you can see that I have just popped all of those different elements onto the cardstock, and I'm going to grab them with my MISTI and we'll get to stamping. So I decided that instead of trying to be able to line it up and get a really good crisp impression, that using the gold was going to give me enough of a hint of what I wanted that I would be able to just stamp it once on each piece of cardstock and it would be good enough. So I went ahead and stamped it on the lightest shade, which is Pink Diamond, and then I came in with Pinkalicious and restamped it. So because I had kind of visually marked that I was going to be in about a ½ inch from the right side, I was able to get my cardstock in basically the same place each time. So then moving into the Rubelite, I was able again to match up my cardstock and get it in the right place, and then move on to the final color, which is Razzleberry, to get that same pattern. So this is kind of essential because what I'm going to do is line up all of these layers together and do an oldie but goodie technique to get everything to kind of match up and create those 4 strips from the sketch. So now I have my 4 pieces done, and it's time to go into that old technique, which is paper tearing. Have you done this technique? It's been around forever. Of course, you can just tear a piece of paper and make something unique. We do this a lot in collage, and it's something that I think has kind of fallen from the wayside in paper crafting, but you can get that nice kind of random deckled edge just by using a ruler and tearing your paper. So you saw I had a little bit of a problem at first, and that was because I was trying to tear off such a small amount. So I just went for it with my hand and was able to get what I was looking for. So now that I've torn my second piece, you can see that I'm starting to line these up, and each time I'm going in a little bit deeper with my torn edge. And this is really just a starting point to get these pieces torn and then to work with the pieces that I have torn and ready to go. So now with the last piece here, I'm flipping it over to get a torn edge. I want to have torn edges on all the sides, and they don't have to look perfect. So you can see here that I started to tear off a little bit and it kind of chunked off the edge there, but that's okay. That's exactly what I can use. And I'm tearing off the ends too because I don't want any straight edges on these pieces. So I go back in and I start tearing off the excess off of the backs of these other pieces and keep marrying them up based on where the stamping was done. So this is how I get all of my layers to match up properly. I'm just matching up that stamped image that was stamped across all 4 of these. So just finish up a little bit more ripping here, and now I have all of my pieces and I can start figuring out exactly how I want them to layer and then go ahead and start gluing them together. So now it's just a matter of adding some adhesive and lining them up with the stamped images on each layer. And that actually makes it pretty easy. I noticed that I didn't quite have things lined up, so because I was using a liquid adhesive, I was able to just kind of smush it around a little bit and get it exactly where I wanted to go. So you can see that this whole pattern is coming to life. So it's really a new take on an old technique, paper tearing, of course, but then by adding the stamped images on each layer and then lining them up, that just kind of modernizes it a little bit and gives it this really fresh feel. So now I have my piece finished and I can move on to my next steps. So I'm going to make a slimline card, and my preferred size is a 7x7 piece of cardstock that is scored at 3.5. And I came in with the Linear Pathway Alphabet Set. Now I'm not using the thin lines that go around it, just the large alphabet, so they can be used separately. You don't have to use the two stamp sets, the two die sets together. So just using those large pieces, I picked out some letters and I'm going to make the word love. So I'm placing them onto my background piece with some temporary tape here, and I will go ahead and run this through my die cut machine. So once I come back, I have these 4 letters, which I'm going to set aside and use for our next project. And I'm going to go ahead and add on this final piece to my slimline card base. I already have some adhesive on the back, so it's popped up a little bit. That'll give me a nice little shadow behind with the white popping through. And then of course I have the center for the O. You don't have to put it in there, but in this instance, I decided that I thought it would look better that way. So I added that in. And once that was done, I needed to add the rest of my sentiment. So I'm using the Better Together stamp set, and I'm going to use the word spread from the Spread Love Sentiment. The first step with this is to mask off the word love, because I already have that from my die cut piece. So I mask that off and I ink it up in obsidian black, and then I remove my post-it notes so that way I just get the word spread on my piece of white cardstock. And I didn't get the P, so I pulled out my fine liner pen and just used that to get that little leg off the bottom of the P there. It's a very quick fix, and that is a great use of our brand new fine liner pens. So now I can snip this out and get rid of a little bit of excess cardstock on the top and the bottom. And I don't care that this is maybe not cut perfectly square. It looks really nice and casual when you go ahead and kind of freehand cut it. So I need to figure out where I'd like it to go. And in the end, I really think it just looks nicest off to the left of the word love. Now, I thought I might be done with this card at this point, but then I decided it needed some bling. So I came back with the satin gold sequins, which really coordinates nicely with the enchanted gold pigment ink, and added on 3 sequins using our 2-in-1 precision glue pen. So my key to the sequins is to always use a small, a medium, and a large, and I always pair the large and the small together in a little duo, and then on the opposite side in a triangular pattern I add that medium sequins, and that's how I get my sequins to look so nice in a layout. For my second project, I'm going to be using the Essential Black and White paper pack. It's got tons of great geometric patterns, and I had a whole bunch of extra pieces left over from other projects. So I went ahead and pulled out all my scraps, and I found some that were appropriately sized to fit on a regular A2 card base. And then I just started fooling around with how I thought they would look nicest. So to break up some of the pattern, it was nice to add a darker pattern. So the one with the more black and the small white angled pinstripes really helped to break up the first and third pieces. So once I had it laid out the way I wanted it, I took a piece of temporary tape and adhered them all together so I could flip it over and glue it down. This way I can just flip up each edge, add a little bit of adhesive, and get everything down exactly the way that I had it spaced out on the card base when I was dry fitting everything together. Of course, I had tape down, so I couldn't get that last piece glued, but that's okay. That one wasn't really as difficult to remember where it went as everything else. So I went ahead and glued the larger section down, and then can add in that final piece that will help us match up with our sketch for today. So now I have my 4 pieces in place. And as you can tell, I mean, this is kind of a loose interpretation of the sketch, but it still has the 4 vertical lines, and it really does speak to the intent of the sketch. So I went back into Better Together, and I wanted to do like the Don't Forget to Love Yourself, but I already had those awesome letters that I had cut out from the first project. So I did a little bit of creative masking and was able to stamp the Don't Forget To section, and then also the Love Yourself, but then fussy cut around just the word yourself. So I would have independent letters for, or independent words for my layout. Then I just needed to finish adhering everything down. I popped down that love with some liquid adhesive, And just as a reminder, when you're using the Essential Black and White paper pack, it is a little bit of a slick surface, so your letters and anything that you glue down is likely to scooch around a little bit. I prefer to use liquid adhesive on the slick surface because it is going to stick better overall. If you're using a tape runner, sometimes it really likes to pop up very easily off of that slick surface, so I go for the liquid instead. And then I just needed to add in the rest of my sentiment pieces. And as you can see, I was having a little problem picking some of those up. I just cut my nails today, so I didn't have any purchase for any of my little pieces. So I just added in those last few bits and decided again that I was going to add in some sequins. And that really kind of pulls together the two cards that I created for this sketch. So again, I'll go for a large and a small grouped together on the top. And then I'll take a medium one, and I wasn't quite sure where that would go. Perhaps it would go a little farther away, but then I decided that I just liked it closer. So those three little sequins went right around the beginning of the sentiment to help set that off and really add some more dimensional interest to this already crazy geometric card. And that's it. 2 takes on a brand new sketch that you can use to create some projects of your own. Which did you prefer, the modern ripped strips or the pile of geometric paper scraps? Let me know in a comment below. I hope you had fun exploring this sketch with me, and when you use it and share on social media, don't forget to tag me at Pixel Mavens Retreat and at Altanew LLC. We'd love to see the projects you create with our fabulous sketches. I'll be back soon with more sketch inspiration, but until next time, happy crafting.
Hello crafters, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching!